Hello and welcome. And thanks for joining. You're here with our weekly chat on Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap podcast. And I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, your host. As a career and life coach for women, my vision for this show is to create resources that help women navigate career and life challenges more easily and to know they are not alone. So, with each weekly conversation, we inspire women worldwide to become more confident, brilliant, and brave in their careers and in their lives. So, if something strikes a chord as you listen and you want more information, check out the show notes below, and you'll find all kinds of ways to connect with my guest and me. So, we call this show Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap for a reason. Transitions can be complicated, messy, and they often leave us feeling stuck in the middle, right smack dab in the middle, and we don't know which way to turn. But with the right guidance, navigating transitions doesn't have to be such a bumpy road. So, in this show, we'll be exploring the world of transitions with another expert, Annemiek van Helsdingen, who comes to us from the Netherlands. Annemiek is a seasoned coach, educator, and founder of the Academy for Soul-Based Coaching. She and her team offer coaching and education to thousands of professionals in the coaching, therapy, and healing fields, connecting the dots between professional coaching, transitions, spirituality, and the healing arts. With a deep passion for both the spiritual and practical aspects of transitions, Annemiek is a guest teacher for coaching institutes, energy healing educational centers, and other organizations. So let's delve into the world of transitions. It's a favorite topic of mine. And let's learn how to navigate them with more confidence and success. So we call this episode Unlocking the Secrets to Successful Transitions. Hello, Annemiek. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Oh, what
you are so
a
welcome. I
pleasure.
really I appreciate you joining me and joining me from across the pond, as they say, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a big pond.
it is. Yeah, and I just can't, even though we've all been doing this for quite a while now, I still really marvel at the fact that we can do this, that we have the possibility to just hang out together and have this conversation live with everyone watching as well.
I know. The technology is quite mind-boggling to me as well. And, I have a love-hate relationship with it. When it works, I love it. When like earlier today, I had to have my team get on with me and say, "What's not working?" So they fixed it, thankfully. All right, let's get started, Annemiek. I would love it if you would peel back the onion a little bit for us about your experience with transitions and what inspired you to do what you do now.
Oh, I love that question. So I think from a very early age on, I was so intrigued by what people were doing. Like I was one of those kids who was always listening and always looking and always wondering, so why are you doing this? You say one thing and then you do something else. And so I was always just figuring out the world around me. And, I brought that into my studies. I went into corporate change facilitation, corporate executive coaching. Because I was just so intrigued by why do people do what they do instead of what they want to do, and what is needed for people to get into that space of where they can just be and do as they feel called. So that really is what triggered me. And then, of course, you don't get to be an expert on a topic like this without having lots of messy transformation in your own life. Um, from breakups of very long standing relationships like 10 years plus, um, really challenging health issues that are ongoing. Like that, there's no shortage to choose from transitions that I've had to make in my personal life, in my professional life, but ultimately also brought me to this place where I am like truly like a fish in water, and where I just feel that yes, I'm doing the work, I'm living the life that I was meant to live, and yeah, that fills me with great gratitude.
I love that you said that. I feel the same way about finally finding this place in my life where there's harmony. And I think that's what we all aspire to reach. And many people struggle to get there. And as we did, right? So you
Yeah.
went through some messy transitions in your life. I went through some in mine. And it caused me to study them as well, and why people make the choices they make. So let's talk about transitions and the messy middle that I mentioned early in the introduction. Um, what does that messy middle mean to you?
Well, I think, we're talking about the transitions that are not the kind of transitions that kind of fall into our lap and that are the answers to all our dreams, right? Those transitions usually are not very tricky to deal with. But when we're looking at the transitions that are harder, where we're feeling like there's something that isn't quite right, something is out of alignment, we need to do something or shift something to get into a place where things feel better again, feel more as they should be, more in tune with who we are. Then we're starting to think about, what what gets us there. And one of the main challenges I think that we are all facing is that we're brought up in a culture like the Western culture, painting a very broad brushstroke here, but where we think, or what that we're trained to think, that we should have a handle on life,
Mhm.
that we should be able to control the outcomes, that we should be able to get to the right results. And if we're not there yet, that kind of means that we're lacking in something, that we're doing something wrong in some way, or that we're not good enough in some way. But the very, very essence of transition is that you go from one stage into something else. And when you're in the middle of this, you only know that you're not quite where you used to be, and you're definitely not where you think you want to be. And that messy middle feels like we don't have things under control, because we can't have life under control, right? This is one big cultural misconception that we are living with. And we're still in that process of calling in the new. And that takes um, a lot of skill to navigate that messy middle, to be in that place where, yeah, you're right, I don't know yet what's going to happen next. And actually, that is okay. It's not just okay, it is an essential quality of being able to get to my next unfolding, my next way of being, my next career choice, my next relationship, my next, fill in the blank of what that is. But that messy middle, in that liminal space, it is essentially messy. And one of the things that I really hope that we can offer to people that are listening, that are watching, is that that messiness is a sign that you're on the right path. It's not a sign that anything is wrong with you or in general.
Right. It's required. It's
Yes.
a required part of it's like, the proverbial butterfly before it leaves the cocoon. You're in the cocoon. You're
Yeah.
in the cocoon. I like to describe it as that long, dark tunnel, and you can't see the light you're deep in it. You can't see the light where you came from, and you can't yet see the light on the other side of it,
Yeah.
but you just keep moving through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because it is essential that we all go through that time. It's that period of unknowing, the fear
Yeah.
of the unknown, and all of the stuff that comes up with it, the self-doubt, the wonder, am I doing the right thing?
Yep.
Can I do it? Can I
Yes.
even make this change? And what do we build as we're moving through that? Hopefully we build some courage.
And
Hopefully we build confidence. We start flexing a resilience muscle, because once you've learned how to do this through the messy middle, you've got lots of tools in your treasure chest now.
yeah,
Yeah, that messy middle it's messy for a reason, and by design, I think.
I think so too. And I often talk about how navigating that messy middle is about learning the act of co-creation. So
Mm,
co-creation with life. So to learn not to, because when you're talking about that light at the, at either end of the tunnel,
mhm.
I love that, because that's so, the moment that we see the light is very often when our minds can understand
That's
what's
right.
next, or where we were. And the fact, of the matter is that in that messy middle, the only thing that we can do is lean into this emergent future that isn't here yet, but that our mind has no control over. So we are forced to start living with and tapping into other parts of our resourcefulness. And that makes it really juicy. And yes, it takes skills that, we don't get to learn in school.
That's so true. I mean, we aren't taught how to go through transitions in this lifetime. We end up, I think, stumbling through the first one, and then and being caught off guard a lot of times, not realizing that this is what it is, right? So we're all right, something's changing now. And I'm in a transition. We don't even know what to call it at the time, right? And we fumble through it. Let's give the audience some examples
Mm.
of what this messy middle might look like, so that people can understand what they can maybe resonate with, what they might be feeling, what they might be doing. Give us some examples.
Yeah, sure. I'll start with an example for myself.
Okay.
As I was saying earlier, um, professionally, I've had some big transitions as well. And most of them were triggered by my health. So I deal with chronic illness, with immune system stuff. Um, and that meant that about 11 years ago, I had to say goodbye to the agency, the change facilitation agency that I'd built with two of my dearest friends. I had to walk away from anything, every idea that I had about myself, my identity, who I was in the world, because I was no longer able to do that work. And that left me in a very messy middle where for a couple of years I was not able to do anything. I was lucky to be able to walk up the stairs. I had a 1 year old at the time. So that was a very challenging period in our lives, in my family's life. Um, but what also happened was that because of that, I was forced to, like, there's no way in the way that I am, that I was going to sit behind the windows and kind of watch life go by. That I did not have that in me. So I started to feel into look at, so how can I participate? How can I contribute? How can I serve from where I am? And that meant that I had to look really carefully at, what is my skill set? I'd been teaching coaches for a long time by then. How can I do that in my current state of being? And this was pre-pandemic. This was pre everyone's on Zoom. So as soon as I found Zoom and noticed, hey, we can actually bring that training online, that started to open some possibilities, but still I could not do it in the way that I'd done it up to that point. So as I started to really be with what was true in me, I started to see that actually my spiritual experience, the way that I am as a person, how I'm experiencing my life, needed to be at the heart of what I was doing. And that needed to be because if I wasn't very true to that, if I wasn't doing my meditation, if I wasn't bringing some form of embodiment and presencing into the little bits of work that I was doing, I was back in bed for days, literally. And so it forced me to stay super, super, super clear as to how can I do this in a way that serves me as well as my audience. And that was messy for at least 4 years. And I could not have foreseen like what the academy has become at this point. Like if I would have tried to think that up in my mind, I would have not been able to do it. So that messy middle, and this is something that I see very often for our clients too, it very often has to do with a realignment of like the mind, like the sense of self, the sense of purpose that people feel, so that it can kind of all start to kind of feel, like the cocoon that you were talking about,
Yeah.
the butterfly turning to mush, right? It kind of needs to reset itself. It's like an inner realignment.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, things fall into place, both inside and in our surroundings. And that's very often when there's like, oh, there's the light at the end of the tunnel. That is very often when there's like a specific opportunity pops up or like an idea comes to the surface
Right.
that wasn't possible before.
I thank you for sharing that story. I hope you are doing better now.
I am, and it is an ongoing situation. So in
Yeah.
that sense, one thing that it's really helped me do is say goodbye to the idea of happily ever after, which we're also so addicted to in our culture. So to just have the awareness that this is the moment, you and me and
Yeah.
everyone who's here with us right now, this is the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, and you brought up a really good point because I work with women every day who are they come through the career transition door. As a certified life coach and career coach, that they are very intertwined, right? Our careers are only 1/7 of our lives, but they are, they require so much of our energy and time. But you said something about in your messy middle, you had to really get very clear about what your skill set is and how that can translate given now your physical limitations. How can you not make those also your mental limitations or your emotional limitations, right? How can you make your skills work in this new environment, right?
Yeah.
That you are forced to work within. And I think a lot of people resist that truth, right? They
Mm,
fight it.
mhm.
And I think when we fight it, when we resist, we are just pushing things back rather than allowing things to be the way they are and adapting to that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I think
finding finding your, I guess it's exercising that adaptability muscle too.
yeah. Yeah, and I think there's like layers to it from the way that we work in soul-based coaching, the way that I look at it. Um, that adaptability, it starts with accepting that we're in the messy middle, and
Yeah.
that is just the season, and it's needed for us to get to this new place.
Yeah, and I think the acceptance actually starts a little earlier than that, right? Accepting that things are changing, right?
Yes.
Things
So,
are evolving as they always do
yeah.
for everyone. That's the way this life was designed, right? To change.
Yeah.
And for those who resist that, it's a difficult journey. For those who accept that things will change, then their ability to adapt to that change is easier.
Absolutely. I think if
Yeah,
there's one thing that I would wish my former self is a little less struggle, like
a little less struggle. Yeah,
little less resistance. But
but that's what we learn, right? That's the transformation, the transformative journey is
mm,
that we get, thank the good Lord, we get wiser as we go through more of these things, right?
yeah,
And I talked about having tools in your treasure chest. We learn different things that will help us. And now you're helping others in your business, and so am I. And
yeah,
that's the gift of it,
absolutely,
learning and then teaching.
absolutely.
And
Yeah,
everyone can do that. Everyone can do that.
so true. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I often talk about finding the calm in the chaos.
Mm.
And I love it when you say that there's beauty in the chaos. So I would love for our audience to hear what you mean by there being beauty in the chaos.
When I was just kind of feeling into our conversation, one of the things that was popping up was um, anyone who's ever done any kind of creative hobby kind of thing. I'm not going to say artist because I'm definitely not. But when you're in the middle of like a creative project, there is this for a long time there's this phase of like it's not very clear what's going to happen. I'm not sure this is ever going to work out. Like, will this look any good, or like will I find pleasure in the end result of like. But then something happens out of that chaos that has a direction, gets a shape, becomes like the essence of what you're creating. And I think the beauty in the chaos is realizing that when you're in the chaos, it's like a melting pot of potential and possibility. And even though it might not feel very comfortable all the time, it is like you're playing with the creative forces of the universe or whatever you want to label it. Um, but it's like you don't know what's going to pop up, but something is going to pop up that wasn't there before. And it's like for me, it's like the being a witness to life creating itself. And so the beauty in that is being present to creation is like fantastic. When we can step away from the point of view where it's like my mind just wants to know right now, because then it will feel much more comfortable, because then I can make my plans, and things can depend, I can depend on them. It's like when we can dial that need back for a bit and see what's present here, that it is pure potential that you're being with. That is incredible, and that has such depth to it.
And if we allow ourselves to be more and do less, feel like we have to always be a doer. I've got to, I've got to be taking um, action. I have to be making steps forward all the time, because
Mm,
if I'm not doing that, then I'm not moving forward and I'm not successful. And there
yeah,
is this, that's why I call it the calm in the chaos. It's like the eye of the storm. because when we're in transition, we are in a storm.
Yeah.
And it's why I talk about navigating it a lot, because there are ebbs and flows, there are mountains and molehills, there's so much to go through, that if we can't sit with that and let ourselves be in it, feel what we feel, experience what's coming, and flow with it, then we're resisting it. Then we're trying to dictate it. And that's not how it works.
No, that's when we're trying to do that, we're relying on one way of creation. So in our work, we often talk about this feminine and the masculine paradigm. So not talking gender, but more yin yang as a way of thinking about this, where the more masculine way, which is prevalent in our culture, is about action, right? It's about getting goals. It's about taking steps. It's about accountability. It's about, preferably linear, like, we're getting up that ladder.
Right.
There is like a whole other way that creation happens, and we only have to look at how our children are conceived and nourished and nurtured, and even in the womb, it's like there's not a lot of doing there, but this liminal space is very much like in that gestation phase, where things are becoming, and it is kind of, to some degree, it's out of our hands. I mean, there's definitely things that you can do to guide yourself and to help yourself be in that calm of the storm and in that place of being. But it's really useful to start realizing that actually some of the most impactful things that have been created in our lives didn't come from doing. They were invited, they were allowed, they were embraced, necessarily done.
Yeah, that's so true. You said it earlier. We grow up thinking that we know how it should be, and there are all kinds of expectations set on us and that we set for ourselves, because we think we know who we should become, how we should get there. And we don't, honestly, that's one of the things we don't have much control over at all. And even though we think we do.
Yeah, and we think we should do as well.
And we think we should, right. So it's a word I wish we could just carve right out of our vocabulary, because there's not a lot of should in this transition process that we're talking about. And I love the way you put it, that there's, beauty in the unlimited potential that there is when we get quiet and just kind of let ourselves be. And things will start to, there'll be glimmers. There are glimmers of hope, glimmers of ideas that come in that messy middle part when we're quiet and don't try to force our way through it.
Yeah. And it's the work that I do, it's called soul-based coaching, because it opens the door into we have the ideas, we have the hope that starts to flow, but there's also like our subconscious, our body has so much wisdom. Our soul is speaking to us all the time as well, but it is with a soft voice. And when we start to find the practices that help us be still, be calm, or this can be in movement too, whatever people prefer. But there are constant nudges. There's little things, and our minds may not understand why I have this sudden urge to go and buy dishwasher tablets at this particular shop at this point. Like, what does that have to do with this big transition that I'm? It's happening. Trust it. You might meet someone. It might bring you to, on your way, you might get an idea or see something or hear something on the radio, a song, or like a feeling might pop up. It's like there's so many little things that are pointing the way all the time. And when we start to develop the capacity to be with ourselves, to really
Yeah.
be present with ourselves, then there is so much more clarity and direction than our mind thinks that there is, because that's very often in that messy middle. It's like the mind is blind. It does not know what's happening or where it's going to go.
Right.
But like with the butterfly, it has these imaginal cells, right? When it's like everything turns to goo in the cocoon for the butterfly, but there's these imaginal cells, and they hold the blueprint of what is to come.
Yeah.
And so we also have these cells. And they speak with us, even if like we have no clue, if it feels like everything is lost. I remember many, many walks in the forest, very slow walks, not very far walks. They took a long time. But that would be when there would be a little thing popping up, like, oh,
Yep.
hmm. Or it would be me crying my eyes out for like 10 minutes straight, sitting down with my back against like this really big oak tree. You know, it didn't, the whole thing here is that it doesn't matter what the process looks like as long as we allow it to happen.
Right. Right. That's such an important point to make, and that's, I think, where a lot of people struggle because they feel they're not doing anything. They're not
Mm,
doing anything, and that,
yeah,
but in actuality, they are. They're allowing, and that is one of the most important pieces of this. So you mentioned this word earlier. I want to get back to it. This idea of emergence. It conjures the image of the butterfly coming out of the cocoon again. So let's talk about emergence. What makes that possible?
yeah. So for me, emergence is about when things start to happen that were not there before. So it is literally something new coming into existence. And the only way that that can happen is if our minds can let go of this fixed idea that we have about what our future should look like, whether that's our future job, our future company, our future partner, whatever it is. And that is super hard because we've been trained to think that our minds should be the ones running the show. So it should be in charge of us taking the correct steps to get to where we need to go. But when I think about how I met my husband, for example, um, we've known each other for a long time before there was even a glimmer of a, hey, look at that. Oh, look at this. So that could only start to happen when we were both ready, when we had let go of any ideas about what our respective relationships should look like in life. It was at the point where both of us were connected to ourselves first and foremost, when we were willing to be playful and to move along with our, what we felt called to do, what felt like fun, what felt joyful, but also willing to stay really true to ourselves. And especially in that beginning phase, to not, jump in like 2000%, which would have been my pattern before. But to keep moving back to myself and checking, do I want to spend time with him this weekend, or these whatever the days were, and fully allowing myself to say no, and that didn't have to mean anything. Um, and with time, that turned into a very, very beautifully nourishing relationship. And we've been together now for I think 14 years, 15 years. Um, and I think that teaches us something about emergence. It's just one example. There's countless other ones, but it's about bringing presence into the moment. And with presence, I mean being present with all there is inside of you. Not getting carried away by stories about the things that you're feeling, not losing yourself into the ideas that you have about what your future should look like. Being with what you desire, what you would like to call in. Being willing to play, to show up for how life shows up for you. And being willing to get it wrong, right? For me, being in that process of co-creation, of inviting emergence into your life, is about being willing to be in this dance, to take your steps, to see what happens, to respond to that, but without attachment to what the end result should look like. There's a big difference between I want this and that job with this and this amount of money and these responsibilities, and what I'd like to have happen is a role where I see myself fulfilled and rewarded beautifully. Right? We can start to see, when we start to think about what it makes us feel like, what it looks like, how it feels in the inside, then we can start to feel like, ooh, what are steps that come from that desire, rather than what's my action plan? What does that need to look like? What are the steps that I need to take this week? Who's going to hold me accountable? So when we want to invite emergence, it is about showing up from presence and being willing to explore.
Thank you for sharing that definition about what it feels like when you allow yourself to emerge. This is it's a concept that I think, like many we've talked about today, difficult for a lot of people because, as I said before, I think we feel like we need to be doers. And what you just described is we need to be beers more so. And just go with the flow. I love the way you put it. If we imagine what it is we want in terms of how it makes us feel, then that opens the possibility, many possibilities, for something to come that will make us feel that way. Yeah. And it may not look anything like what we thought it might look.
Exactly. And you know what? For me, it not looking like what we thought it would look is a sign of success. It's a sign of aliveness. It's like, if it looks exactly as we think it should look, that's when we try to put life in boxes and kind of like we try to tame like the gazillion possibilities and opportunities that are out there to fit into the box that our brilliant mind, of course, has thought up. But like, life in reality is so much better than that. So yes, let's use our ideas as a template, as a starting point, but then go, life, let's go and play and make it even better.
Let's see. Let's look for something better. Yeah. It makes me think about a lot of women that I work with who say to me, I thought I wanted, the American dream, right? Excuse me, a career that fulfills me, a husband, a family, a beautiful house, a 3-car garage. Used to be 2-car, now it's 3-car. And she has that. She has all of it. But she's not happy.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because she kind of forced all of those things to happen. She did all of those things to make them happen. Yeah. And she wasn't listening to what it was she really wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a hard concept for people to grasp.
Yeah. And
Because
this is
it's
where,
filled with expectations,
oh,
right?
absolutely. It means that you have to break out of the dominant cultural mold, right? The dominant
Yeah.
cultural conditioning. And that is, that takes quite a bit of work.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
to find your feet in that, to find your new anchors, then, because the only way that you're going to find that kind of happiness is when you can align all these parts and layers of yourself, and when you can start on the inside. But it takes a lot of courage,
It does.
because it does mean saying goodbye to all these identities that we hold on to for dear life, because they give us a place in society, right? They give us a
Right.
way of relating to everyone else. It tells, when I had to let go of my company, which was like, things were going really well, and it gives status. It's interesting. You always have something to talk about that other people want to know about. Now, when I talk about my work, there's a whole bunch of people who are like, oh, cool, okay, I'm going to get me a drink, which is fine by me, by the way. There's also a whole lot of people that are like, oh, wait, I want to know more about this.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it takes courage to do that, to show up as you are.
Yeah. And to let go of all of the labels that we use when someone asks us, so what do you do?
Yeah.
Right. I'm a, when I was in corporate, I work for IBM, and I'm in this role, and yeah, it's all right. So we're getting near the end here, and we do have to wrap this up, unfortunately.
Mm.
Um, I would love for you to talk a little bit about, what are the practical tips that you can share with us that maybe will help us to navigate the chaos in the messy middle,
Mm.
and invite emergence,
Yeah.
so that we can get more of what it is we desire.
Yeah. And just on that note, I think that what we desire has a lot to do with why we're here. So those desires are sacred. They're literally the most important things that we have that can point us into the right direction.
Yeah.
So, yeah, some very practical things. I'll start with one that might seem strange, because we haven't really touched on this at all. But the first one is, a gratitude practice is a very, very powerful thing to do. So when we're losing our footing, when we're in the messy middle, and we're not quite sure what's up and what's down, starting to point to things that you're grateful for and actually feeling into why you're grateful for them can be a very life enhancing experience. And also call in more of things that you're grateful for. Train your attention to pay attention to them. So, one way you can do that is start your day by sharing or writing down 3 things that you're grateful for, like 3 new ones every day. Something that I did for a long time is share one thing of that day. I did it on Facebook for accountability, just to make myself do it. But I would also share why it made me feel grateful. And that was like opening up this huge energy well inside of me that really resonated for the people around me as well. So that can be a beautiful thing to do if that speaks to you.
That's a great first one. And we have shared that tip with, for other guests have shared that same tip.
Mm.
So there must be something to it, because it comes from different experts, that when we focus on what in our lives we are blessed by and grateful for, it just, for me, I do it every night before I go to sleep. I do it again every morning.
Mm.
It just is a way to calm the chaos.
Yeah.
Really, it calms the chaos. It puts the things that are most important to us front and center, in our state of mind.
Yeah.
So I love that. Thank you for sharing that one first.
It's so worthwhile.
What's your second one?
Well, the second one is to the word presence. I've mentioned quite a few times, I think, already. And that really is like if you want to work your muscles to navigate that messy middle, presence is absolute key. And so practices that help you be present with yourself and your experience, again, without going into story, without doing all the thinking and analyzing, but just noticing how you are in this moment. So for some people, it's mindfulness exercises. For some people, it's dance. I love 5 rhythms dance, for example, personally. For some people, it's gardening. For others, it is walking in the woods, but like in the way that you really feel your feet and hear the sounds, smell the scents. Taking a bath could be that if you're not going to go and do all the mulling and thinking and analyzing, but if you bring your attention to how does my body feel? Like what emotions are inside of me at the moment? What happens if I just allow them to be, if I just feel into them without going into the story of why they're here or what I should do with them, but just being with that. And also just gently like massaging yourself with like a lovely oil or something like that, but just a way of being present with yourself. And one of my favorite exercises for this is a holding space for yourself meditation that I'm also super happy to share. But that is like a guided meditation that helps you bring your attention to that core of you so that you can start to really listen to these inner signals that are here.
I love that. Being present. We don't do that enough. We don't do that enough. Day-to-day busy lives. We don't do that enough. And I know for all of you, Annemiek has a gift for you. That is her guided meditation to help you hold space for yourself. So be sure to follow the show notes and click on that link so that you get her guided meditation. All right. Do you have one more?
I do.
Okay.
In that calling in of what you want, it is like what you desire better is to share that, to talk about it, even if it feels weird, even if it feels scary, even if it's like not fully formed. It shouldn't be fully formed in that messy middle, because it is in becoming, it's gestating. But it does help to talk about it with people that you know have your back, by people that are not going to go and give you all sorts of like, well, you should do this, or like, oh, have you tried that? But who just allow you to share your story. Also, if you don't have enough of these people around you, find support, right? Work with somebody who can help you be in that space of like the messy middle, or like this cauldron where all of potential is bubbling. In the if you only keep it inside of yourself, it has a lot less opportunity to start making new connections. Right? You can think of it in terms of energy. If there's like a little why am I thinking like a pinball machine? If there's like a pinball thing going around in my system, kind of going point point, like it's limited by my what I can think of, what I can dream of, what my experience is. And so when I can bring that out and share it with other people, it can start to gather so much more momentum. It can start to gather more inspiration. That is where emergence can start to happen for you. Do not kind of do it, on the inside in your room, kind of silently, until you can come out into the world and go, ta-da! This is it. This is the fully formed idea. And oh yes, I've already achieved it too, right? Allow others to be part of your process.
I love that. So, we talked about gratitude and then being present. So that's very much being present with yourself, being tuned in and grounded within yourself and being, I love the way you put it, if you're walking in the woods, right? You actually can feel your steps, your feet touch the ground. And then this third tip is to share it, right? To bring other people in on this idea, people who will not judge it, but will just listen and maybe brainstorm. And that's when the emergent ideas can actually start to take form. I love that. I love the way you did that. Thank you so much, Annemiek. This has been a delightful conversation for me. I am sure it has helped and will help a lot of people who are going through the messy middle and maybe don't even realize what to call it or what to do with it. And I hope this will help them. And I expect that they will want to reach out and learn more about you and get your guided meditation. So would you share with us the one best way for people to connect with you?
Absolutely. The easiest way to find us is in our website, the Academy. Sorry, it is academyforsoulbasedcoaching.com. So not the, right? Just academyforsoulbasedcoaching.com.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
I so appreciate it. And there's so many layers to this conversation. But yeah, it's a really good place to start, I think.
Yes, you're right. I think it's a good start. And for anyone who is walking through one of those messy middles in a transition and they don't know where they are, there are people out here who can help you, who have been there and can help you. So don't be afraid to reach out. Thanks again, Annemiek.
Thank you so much.
And for everyone watching, I really appreciate your being a part of this community. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a comment, or pick a 5-star rating wherever you might be listening. And as I said at the top of the show, I love creating and sharing resources for women. And as a career and life coach, I work with women to help them navigate challenging times like these, to get through them more quickly and gracefully. So if something in this episode resonates and you'd like a fresh perspective, reach out to one of us and let's have a conversation. You might find links below to reach Annemiek or to me in the show notes below. And I invite you to continue the conversation in my private Facebook group called the Career Transition Roadmap. And the link for that is below as well. So let's meet again here next Wednesday, same time, same place. Because you know what? I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's thrive together. Until next time, I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, helping you turn transition into triumph.